Ever wonder how quickly your entire life can shatter? Turns out all it takes is 17 words, spoken carelessly at the wrong moment. I'm still picking up the pieces 3 months later. I'm Morgan, 34, living what I thought was my best life in Seattle until that rainy Friday night when everything imploded. My husband, Daniel, and I had been married for 5 years, and from the outside, we were that couple everyone secretly envied. The renovated Craftsman in Queen Anne, the matching Patagonia jackets, the carefully curated Instagram feed of weekend hikes and farmers market hauls. We had the life, or at least we looked like we did. Daniel works in sustainable architecture, one of those careers that sounds impressive at dinner parties, but doesn't exactly bring in tech money. Still, he's passionate about it, always coming home excited about some new eco-friendly building material or energy-efficient design. It's actually kind of adorable how he lights up talking about passive solar heating. Not that I'd ever tell him that. I've always found it's better to keep men a little uncertain, you know? I run a moderately successful interior design business. Nothing HGTV-worthy yet, but I have a decent local clientele and an Instagram following that's been growing steadily. Daniel's always been supportive, helping me install shelving for clients on weekends, listening to me vent about difficult customers, celebrating every small win. He's thoughtful like that, remembers the things most guys would forget, surprises me with little gifts just because. Last year for my birthday, he built me this gorgeous standing desk from reclaimed wood because I mentioned once, just once, that my back hurt from working at the kitchen counter. So yeah, things were good. Great even. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our favorite takeout spots for lazy Sundays. The sex was as consistent, maybe not swinging from the chandeliers passionate after 5 years, but comfortable. Safe. And there's something to be said for safe, right? Our friend group is tight-knit, 5 couples who've known each other since our early 20s. We do a monthly supper club where we rotate houses. Everyone brings a dish, and we drink too much wine and talk about everything and nothing until the early hours. The kind of friendships where you can go deep or stay shallow, depending on the night. Taylor is my best friend in the group. We've been close since college, the kind of friendship where nothing is off limits. She knows about my secret cigarette habit when I'm stressed, something Daniel would freak out about. And I know about her crush on her married boss, something her husband Ethan would definitely freak out about. We text constantly, sharing the mundane and the monumental, and yes, sometimes we talk about our husbands, the good, the bad, and occasionally the bedroom stuff. It's just girl talk, you know? Harmless venting and comparing notes. All friends do it. And if sometimes I exaggerate Daniel's flaws or make jokes at his expense, well, that's just how I process things. It doesn't mean anything, at least that's what I told myself. The night everything fell apart started so normally. It was our turn to host supper club, and I'd spent all day cleaning the house while Daniel prepared his famous paella. He's actually the better cook between us, though I usually let people assume I'm the culinary genius. It's just easier that way. The dinner was going perfectly. The paella was delicious. I made sure to say we worked so hard on it when everyone complimented the food. The wine was flowing, and the conversation was that perfect blend of catching up, light gossip, and deeper connection that happens when old friends get together. Daniel had just finished telling everyone about his latest project, a community center using sustainable materials, and I could see how excited he was, gesturing with his hands the way he does when he's truly passionate about something. Everyone was genuinely interested, asking questions about the design and environmental impact. And the best part, he said, grinning, is that they've asked me to lead the entire project. It's a huge opportunity. Our friends erupted in congratulations while I smiled and nodded, trying to look supportive. I was happy for him, of course, but there was this tiny part of me that was already calculating what this meant for us. More late nights at the office, more weekends lost to work, more listening to him talk about building materials and energy efficiency. "This calls for a toast," Ethan declared, raising his glass. Everyone followed suit. To Daniel, sustainable architecture genius and all-around good guy. To Daniel, everyone echoed. Thanks, everyone, Daniel said, looking a bit embarrassed by the attention but clearly pleased. It'll mean some longer hours for a while, but Morgan's been incredibly supportive. But the wine had loosened my tongue, and I couldn't resist adding my own little joke. Just promise me one thing, I said, playfully patting his arm. When you're working late with all those hot young architects, remember you're a married man. Daniel's smile tightened just slightly, but he nodded. Always. Not that I'm worried, I continued, feeling the words tumble out before I could stop them. The architecture field is basically, bring your daughter to work day, every day. All those eager young women hoping to design the next Guggenheim. A few uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the room. I should have stopped there, read the room, noticed the shift in energy, but something in me needed to keep pushing. Besides, I said, reaching for more wine, it's not like he has a lot of options anyway. Daniel's idea of flirting is explaining the thermal properties of different window installations. The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel's face had gone completely blank, that careful non-expression I'd seen a few times before when I'd pushed too far. Our friends were suddenly very interested in their food, their wine, the pattern on our dining table, anything but making eye contact. I'm just teasing, I said quickly, trying to salvage the moment. You know I love your nerdy side, honey. Daniel stood abruptly. I think we need more wine. I'll get another bottle. He disappeared into the kitchen and conversation awkwardly resumed. Everyone talking a little too loudly about nothing important. Taylor caught my eye across the table and gave me a subtle head shake. I rolled my eyes back at her. Everyone was being so sensitive. When Daniel returned with the wine, he was smiling again, but it didn't reach his eyes. He poured for everyone, made a joke about sustainable vineyards, and the evening continued. But something had shifted. A slight tear in the fabric of our carefully constructed life together. After everyone left, I was buzzed and tired, ready to fall into bed and deal with the dishes in the morning. Daniel was methodically loading the dishwasher, his movements precise and controlled. That was fun, I said, leaning against the counter. I think everyone had a good time. Daniel didn't respond, just continued arranging plates in perfect rows. Earth to Daniel, I said, waving my hand. I said that was fun, right? He finally looked up at me, his expression unreadable. Why do you do that? Do what? I asked, though I knew exactly what he meant. Make jokes at my expense, especially in front of our friends. I sighed dramatically. It was just a little teasing. Don't be so sensitive. It wasn't teasing, Morgan. It was humiliating. Oh, come on, I scoffed. Everyone jokes about their spouse. It's practically a requirement of marriage. Not like that, he said quietly. Not in a way that makes me feel small. I felt a flicker of guilt, quickly replaced by defensiveness. You're really overreacting. It was nothing. It's never nothing, he said, closing the dishwasher with a soft click. It's a pattern. You do this all the time, and I'm tired of it. Fine, I snapped. I'm sorry you're so fragile that you can't handle a little joke. But he was already walking away, his shoulders set in a rigid line I'd never seen before. I told myself he was being ridiculous, that he'd get over it by morning. Some people just can't take a joke. Except he didn't get over it. The next morning, I woke to find him already gone. A note on the kitchen counter saying he was going to stay with his brother for a few days to clear his head. I was stunned. In 5 years of marriage, we'd had disagreements, sure, but nothing that had ever resulted in one of us leaving. I called Taylor immediately. Daniel left, I said as soon as she picked up. He's staying with his brother because apparently I hurt his precious feelings last night. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Morgan, she finally said, her voice unusually serious. You were pretty harsh. What? Not you too. It was a joke. Was it though? Because it sounded a lot like you were putting him down in front of everyone we know. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Whose side are you on? I'm on the side of your marriage, she said carefully. And I'm worried that you don't see what you're doing. What I'm doing? What about what he's doing? He's the one who walked out over nothing. It's not nothing to him, Morgan. And honestly, it wasn't the first time. Remember at New Year's when you told everyone he couldn't set up the new TV without calling his dad for help? Or at Zoe's birthday when you kept interrupting his stories to correct details that didn't matter? I felt my face grow hot. That's different. I was just making him the butt of your jokes, Taylor finished. Look, I love you, but you've been doing this for years. I just never said anything because I didn't think it was my place. I hung up shortly after, furious that even my best friend was turning against me. Over the next few days, I cycled between anger, indignation, and occasional flashes of doubt. I sent Daniel texts ranging from accusatory, real mature running away instead of talking to me, to pleading, please come home so we can talk, to apologetic, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. His responses were brief and non-committal. I need time. We'll talk when I'm ready. I'm still figuring things out. A week turned into 2. 2 weeks became a month. Daniel came by the house when I was at client meetings to pick up more clothes and his laptop. Our friends walked on eggshells around me, careful not to mention him unless I asked directly. And even then, their answers were vague. He seems okay. He's focusing on his work. He just needs space right now. I maintained a brave face on social media, posting about me time and self-care journeys, making it seem like this separation was mutual, even positive. But in reality, I was unraveling. Our house felt too big, too empty. I'd find myself staring at his side of the closet, now half empty, wondering how we'd gotten here. Then came the text that shattered my carefully constructed denial. I think we should talk. I've consulted a lawyer. I'll come by tomorrow at 7. A lawyer. He'd consulted a lawyer. This wasn't a cooling off period or a temporary separation. He was actually considering divorce. When he arrived the next evening, I barely recognized him. Not physically, he looked the same, maybe a bit thinner, but something fundamental had changed. The way he carried himself, the direct way he looked at me, without the familiar warmth or gentle deference I was used to. You wanted a divorce over one stupid joke? I blurted out before he could even sit down. He sighed, settling into what used to be his favorite armchair. It wasn't one joke, Morgan. It was death by 1,000 cuts, years of small humiliations and dismissals that I kept excusing because I loved you. Loved? Past tense? My voice sounded small even to my own ears. I don't know what tense it is anymore, he said honestly. All I know is that when you made that comment at dinner, something finally clicked. I realized I was in a relationship where the person who was supposed to be my biggest supporter was actually my biggest critic. And not in a way that helped me grow, but in a way that tore me down. That's not fair, I protested, tears threatening. I support you. I've always supported you. Do you? He asked quietly. Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like you're embarrassed by me, by my job, my interests, even the way I talk. That's not true, he pulled out his phone. Then how do you explain these? He handed me his phone, open to a series of screenshots. Text messages between me and Taylor spanning back months. Me complaining about Daniel's boring stories, mocking his enthusiasm for sustainable architecture, comparing him unfavorably to Ethan, to celebrities, to fictional characters. Reading them all together like this, without the context of our friendship, they seemed cruel, petty. Where did you get these? I whispered. Taylor sent them to me, he said, his voice flat. After the dinner party, she said she'd been feeling guilty about her role in it for a long time. Betrayal cut through me. She had no right. She had every right, Daniel interrupted. She's been enabling this behavior by laughing along, by letting you think it was normal to talk about your husband this way. She finally realized she was part of the problem. I stared at him, speechless. My best friend had turned over private conversations to my husband. The ultimate betrayal. I never meant to hurt you, I finally managed, hating how weak it sounded. I believe that, he said, surprising me. I don't think you set out to make me feel small, but you did. Consistently, relentlessly. And when I finally called you on it, your response wasn't to listen or try to understand. It was to dismiss my feelings entirely. I felt something crumbling inside me, my defenses, my justifications, the story I'd been telling myself that this was all an overreaction. "What do you want?" I asked, afraid of the answer. "I want a divorce," he said simply. "I've already found an apartment. My lawyer will be in touch about dividing assets." Just like that. 5 years of marriage ended over what still felt to me like a minor transgression, blown wildly out of proportion. "This isn't fair," I said, tears flowing freely now. "Everyone jokes about their spouse sometimes." "This isn't about everyone," he said, standing to leave. "This is about us, and it stopped being a joke a long time ago." After he left, I sat alone in our living room until the early hours, replaying conversations, incidents, moments that I dismissed as harmless banter, but that must have cut deeper than I ever realized. For the first time, I tried to imagine how it would feel to be on the receiving end of my jokes, to have the person I loved most in the world subtly undermining me in front of our closest friends. It was an uncomfortable exercise. That was 3 months ago. The divorce is moving forward. Our friends have delicately divided themselves between us, and I've moved to a smaller apartment closer to downtown. I couldn't afford our mortgage on my own. Turns out Daniel had been covering more of our expenses than I realized. Taylor and I haven't spoken since I discovered her betrayal. She sent a few tentative texts, but I've ignored them all. Some lines you can't uncross. Last week, I saw Daniel for the first time since he came to the house. It was accidental. We both showed up at the same coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday morning. He was with a woman I didn't recognize. Not in a romantic way, at least I don't think so. But they were clearly comfortable together, bent over architectural plans spread across the table, talking animatedly. He looked lighter, happier than I'd seen him in longer than I could remember. He spotted me, gave a small nod of acknowledgement, and turned back to his companion. No anger, no lingering resentment. Just the polite recognition you'd give a former colleague or distant acquaintance. It hurt more than if he'd ignored me completely. On my darkest nights, alone in my new apartment with its blank walls and half-unpacked boxes, I wonder if maybe everyone else was right. Maybe my jokes weren't just jokes. Maybe I was using humor to disguise something uglier, insecurity perhaps, or a need to feel superior. Maybe I'd been slowly poisoning my marriage for years without recognizing the symptoms. Other times, I'm still angry. Angry that one comment could unravel 5 years together. Angry that my friends took his side so quickly. Angry that Taylor betrayed my confidence. Angry that Daniel didn't fight harder for us, didn't give me a real chance to understand, to change. Last night, scrolling through Instagram against my better judgment, I saw that Daniel's community center project broke ground. The photo showed him in a hard hat, beaming alongside his team, surrounded by the people who believed in his vision. The caption mentioned his innovative approach to sustainable community spaces and his dedication to creating buildings that serve people while protecting the planet. The comment section was filled with congratulations from our mutual friends, from colleagues, from people I'd never heard of who apparently admire his work. He's thriving without me, building the career he always wanted, surrounded by people who respect his passion rather than mocking it. And here I am, alone in an apartment that still doesn't feel like home, wondering how 17 careless words could destroy the life we built together. Besides, it's not like he has a lot of options anyway. Daniel's idea of flirting is explaining the thermal properties of different window installations. 17 words, a quick laugh at his expense, the final straw in a pattern I refuse to see. Sometimes I tell myself it wasn't my fault, that Daniel was too sensitive, that marriages end for bigger reasons than a few jokes, that if he really loved me, he would have stayed and worked through it. But in my most honest moments, the ones that come in the quiet darkness before dawn, I admit the truth. I lost the best person in my life because I couldn't resist the momentary satisfaction of a laugh at his expense. And the worst part is, I'm not sure I know how to be different, even now. One bad joke, that's all it took. One bad joke that wasn't really a joke at all.